we have found ourselves in. And I just want to, again, welcome you and thank you for coming. I am Mary Page Boyce. I work in the Office of Teaching and Learning. My office is at the Richland II Institute of Innovation. And my title, if you need to find me at any point for any questions or any way that I can help you in this process or through this process, please know that I'm the Director of College and Career Initiatives. And I have my email at the end of this presentation that you all can write down and certainly use. I would love to introduce you to my colleagues who will be chiming in and presenting with their vast knowledge and will help me answer the questions at the end. I have Kristen C., who is the director of the Gear Up for the Central Carolina Gear Up, and she is not only directing our Richland II high schools through the Gear Up process, but also Sumter County, Calhoun County, and both Lawrence school districts, so Lawrence County. But she has been a long Richland II employee and is headquartered in Richland II. Then we have Dr. Otasha Morgan, who is our lead school counselor, who is all things school counseling. And she is an expert in this field and has served with us in Richland II for many years. She has been a counseling director and is now at the district level. And we are in charge of helping share this new information and rapidly changing information with you. And so again, it's very important that we take time to do this. So thank you for being here. I just want to say that like everything else in our nation these last 4 months, college is a changing environment. I don't think we could, any of us, think of any industry, any social institution that has not experienced a lot of shift and change. And I just want to say that the same is true for college. Do you know that 7% right now, 7% of
no, that I can hear yours better.
Graduating seniors are thinking about deferring, which is a process where an admitted student lets the college know they are not going to come this fall, but they'll come the next fall. Now, I'm not going to literally do the math on a calculator, but if you had about 5,500 students admitted to the University of South Carolina for this fall, and 7% of them decided not to go, to wait until the fall of 2021, then that's roughly 700 or 800 kids, and that's going to take 700 or 800 spots from the incoming class that you all are going to be part of if you are a rising senior. So the landscape of admissions could become very competitive, and that's what we want to talk about today. Bob Caslin, our own president of our university here in Columbia, the University of South Carolina, has indicated that 15 to 20% of all college students, so not just the rising freshmen, but all of the college students in the United States today are considering whether they're going to take a semester off or take a year off. So all of those things will have impact for us. I want to talk about admissions specifically. There's a lot about college in other arenas that can change. Certainly dorm living and all of that kind of stuff is changeable during this time. But with admissions specifically, which is what our rising seniors are worried about, and even our rising juniors as they prepare to be competitive for admission their senior year, are worried about these things. So there are a lot of known changes that have already occurred. A lot more schools are opting for test optional. For some, that will be a permanent change, and for some, that will be next year only. And some are saying that we're going to do this for 2 or 3 years to sort of count for some changes in family environments and stuff like that. The Common App, which is the application that a lot of students use to apply to colleges, has changed due to COVID-19. And then, as I've already mentioned, we have the unknown factors. One of those is competitiveness of the admissions field for the rising seniors in the next 4 or 5 months. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is this idea of test optional. Again, I've already said a lot of schools have already announced that they're going to do this temporarily. Some are going to do it permanently. But why are they doing it? They're doing it for a number of reasons. We've had to cancel, of course, our March, April, May, June, and July test dates. There are conceivably some rising seniors who do not have a test score with which to apply this fall. And as you know, especially here in our state, Clemson opens up their applications on August the 1st, and there will not be another testing date before that. Ironically, Clemson is one school that has not said they are test optional. So for anybody who is applying to Clemson, we have to just hope that you've already taken a test, or your application will have to go in later after testing. But we're going to talk about ACT and SAT in detail in just a moment. Another reason is because of money. You were charged when you take the test, and a lot of people through the pandemic have lost their jobs, and that is another reason that schools are going test optional. Again, not all schools. In our state, we know that Furman and Wofford and Presbyterian College are offering test optional at this point. Now, as I said in the first slide, things are rapidly changing, so an announcement could come at any point. But right now, those are the 3 in our state. And then, of course, why it might last more than a year. Some kids are feeling a lot of stress in this time, and it's not the optimal testing time for them. So these are kind of the reasons. But what I want to say first and foremost is when you have an opportunity, try and take the test. Kristen is going to talk to you in a little while about vouchers and things like that for the test. The state will have an opportunity for you to test. And go ahead and try those tests even when you're in a test optional environment, if you were trying to go to Furman or Wofford or PC or any other out of state that is test optional. Because students who do have strong test scores are going to stand out, especially if there's a large pool of students who do not. And we've already talked about the competitiveness of college admissions for our rising seniors. The other thing that I would say about test optional is when you are deciding whether or not to do that, if you were going to just make a cut and dry and say, I'm going to go test optional, you need to know how that plays in with your academic story. And that's really when you can decide whether this is a wise decision for you or not a wise decision. Does your test score support your academic story or take away from your academic story? I have people all the time say to me, my child is really a hard worker. They make great grades. They've been very involved in their school. They're just not a good test taker. So if that is true for you, then the test does not support your academic story. Likewise, we have the opposite of that. We have some students who have a lot of capability, have not applied themselves in all situations in high school, and yet they will go sit down and knock it out of the ballpark on an SAT or an ACT. And in that case, they don't want to be test optional. They really want the test because it does not back up their academic story. And then in some cases, you have students that will score on a test in the same way they've been scoring in their classroom. When you decide on test optional, just know this: if the score is not there, then the other pieces of your application will absolutely be magnified. your essay becomes of critical importance. Please know this, there are schools that say that essays are optional. Essays are never optional. Take the advice that we give our students if you're in an AVID classroom or a Gear Up classroom and we are specifically working with you on getting into college. Essays are never optional. Teacher recommendations will be magnified. I know that some of our school counselors are on this webinar, and I just want to say I went to, and Ms. C went to, and there were some other people that joined us for a 2-day workshop at Duke University about teacher recommendation letters and writing premier teacher recommendation letters. And we can certainly come to our high schools and give that professional development for our teachers, because if we have our students in a test optional environment, then the teacher recommendations become very important. Your extracurriculars, always important, but especially important if you go test optional. Your GPA, your class rank, and your rigor of schedule. Always trying to take the most challenging courses that you can. All of those things will be very important in a test optional environment. A lot of people think that test optional means that it's easier to get in. I don't think so. It almost means it's a little bit more challenging to prove that you are going to be an asset to that college.
Mary, can I say something here?
Please do, yes.
Far off. Regarding your teacher recommendations or whomever, you know, whatever academic staff member is writing your student's recommendation, they should give that person a resume of their activities so that that person and their recommendation can attest to some of the things that they're writing in their essay. That person should be familiar enough with their academic story to sort of confirm as a part of their recommendation things that you have put in your essay. I sit on several scholarship boards, and so I read and review a lot of the student essays and then the recommendations, and some of them, you know, they're an outstanding student, they're great, but it never speaks to that student's personal story. And so those are things that are critical. And as a parent, you have a right and really should read those recommendations, and don't be shy about going back and saying, can you add a little more about blah, 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 or a little more about the time that he really struggled and you saw that he pulled through. So don't be shy about asking for that, because these are your team, these are your dream team members for college admission.
That's absolutely right. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Also, providing that resume is so key, because you don't want your teachers regurgitating what you have already told the colleges. You know, they need to tell special stories about you and to provide insight into you as a student or you in their classroom. So you want to think about the teachers who will absolutely be able to speak to your growth as a human being, your growth as a student, your kindness, your character, all of the things that colleges want on their campus. Another big piece of this is you now have the summer. Work on your essay. Work on your essay now. As I already said, they are never optional. Even if the college says they are, do not think they are optional, and use resources to work on your essay. There are a lot of resources at your disposal before you get back to school where your teachers can help you and your counselors can help you. Your college specialists can help you. But before you get back to school, you can refer to websites like the College Essay Guy. He runs a great podcast, a great website, and there's just all sorts of resources if you just Google. Also know that the Common App has already released their essay questions for the rising senior class. So you can actually see what your essay choices are going to be and start working on your essays. Okay. So about the Common App.
Mary Page,
Yes.
this is Libby. I just wanted to throw this question out there because I think while you're talking about the essay, this would be, I saw it on the chat. How can you find the essay requirements for a college?
Okay, good question. If you Google, just do a good old Google search and Google, like, for example, Clemson University admissions. And if you go to their page, you will see, guess what? Clemson does not take the Common App. So you would have to Google their actual page to see what their essay requirements look like. Most of your colleges are going to take the Common App. I will tell you this, if you are a typical in-state student here in South Carolina, you can apply to both Carolina and Clemson on what is called the Coalition app. It is a lesser used, but also a common application, not to steal the name of the other one. And that one can be used to apply to both USC and Clemson. And you could probably Google to see their essay prompts right now as well. I'm sure they have been released as well. And some of the other colleges, if you are looking at selective colleges, like for example, the University of Chicago or Vanderbilt or Duke, they're going to take the Common App, and then they are going to also have their own essays that they add to it. Some of those schools will have released them. Some will not release them until you are in their application. So you might just have to Google Duke admissions essays, for example, and see if you can see them. Okay, so looking at this, the Common Application, which if you are joining us from a state other than South Carolina, which we do have some attendees from outside of the state of South Carolina, most schools do use the Common App. And I can tell you that the schools that don't are probably going to copy this and add this to their application. But there will be a new space on the Common App for students to express how the pandemic has affected them both personally and academically. So you need to have used this time, and if you haven't already in the last 3 months, then you need to start today at 4 p.m. using this time to be able to tell a good story about yourself. Now, if you have been really negatively affected by this pandemic, if this has caused your family a unique amount of stress and that has caused you stress, then that is the time to explain this to them. If your grades went down or if you were struggling, this is your space to say that. For our students who have maintained good mental and emotional health, then you want to be able to report that this time is time that you have used to do something really good. And you know, I have just an example of a student that was at one of our high schools in the last couple of years, and the student was an urban gardener. So this student had a relationship worked out with her school social worker to where she brought fresh vegetables to the school social worker, who could then pass those on to families that needed fresh vegetables throughout the year. A family that was largely dependent on Harvest Hope and could add in the fresh cucumbers, let's say, that were being grown in the garden. We've had students before who have taken unique hobbies that they have and put them to good use in our community. And that's the kind of thing they're looking for. This is, Julie Gross is a professional college consultant, and this is her quote: "How you manage through this challenging period in terms of your discipline, your self-discipline, your positive attitude, the way you have helped other students, your initiative, all of these things are going to reflect positively on you through this process. Grades and standardized tests, yes, they will still be important, but your character development during this challenging time will be weighed heavily in the admissions process this fall." So you really need to think, if you're a student on this webinar, start talking to your parents tonight. What do I have to offer? What can I do? If you're a parent on this webinar, start talking to your students about what it is that you can help them get started and how you can help them show character development during this time. I have on the bottom there, how can you use this to your benefit, and the explanation necessary factor, high threshold. This is a college admissions counselor term, high threshold. That means something that you will have to put on your application that they don't know what it means. Now look, we know that we love well-rounded students. Putting student council on your college application, everybody knows what that means. That's low threshold. You don't have to explain it. I am captain of the football team. That doesn't need to be explained. Everybody knows what it means to be captain of a high school football team. All those things are good. Low threshold doesn't mean not good. But a high threshold activity is something you're going to have to explain. I was in charge of a group of violin players that went down to Keels Elementary for their after-school program where, you know, Keels is, most people probably don't know this, but Keels is involved with the USC Strings Project. So what about if a group of violin players went down there to their after-school program and helped the students in the music program with their violin skills? You know, those are things that are high threshold that have to be explained. So when you think about using this time effectively, that we've been in virtual learning and you've had a lot of just sort of additional time on your hands, you're wanting to think about high threshold activities that show your character development. Okay, so we're going to talk about these tests now, and they've been hard to get. I'm going to turn this over to Kristen. All I'll say before I do that is there's a lot we don't know. There's some that we do know. One thing that we don't know is all of you as rising seniors, you were supposed to have a free testing opportunity with either the SAT or the ACT, whichever one you chose from the state of South Carolina. We think you're going to get that this fall. We think, that's a think, that the state is likely to give the SAT in school on September 23rd. I want to say this to you all, and I want you to hear me. We have a lot of evidence that students' test scores on the in-school testing opportunity are typically not as high as they would be on a Saturday test administration. I don't have any scientific evidence for what the reason for that is, but all I can tell you is that it is a pattern. Now, a pattern doesn't mean 100% of the kids will score better on a Saturday, but I want you all to take advantage of your free testing opportunity, but I want you to be on the lookout for things that might be part of that reason, like distractions of having your best friend right there across the room or something like that. Be prepared if that is the date for the SAT, and just take advantage of that free opportunity. Of course, we know that all of the SAT tests were canceled from March on, or actually April on. And I'm going to turn it over to Kristen for the most breaking news available. She's got it.
Well, thank you, Mary Page. Just this is a couple of things that actually were sent in an email that I'm on that comes straight from the College Board. So one of the things that they have said that they were actually looking into was the option of at-home virtual SAT testing. And at this point, College Board has put it on pause. So what that means is that is not an option in the near future, but that is not to say that that will not be an option at some other time in the future. One of the problems with doing an at-home virtual with a student taking on a computer, it's 3 hours of internet that can't be interrupted. And they know that for a lot of kids and so on, we all know what happens with our internet at home. So they are looking at that, but at this point, it is not something to look forward to, I think, for our rising seniors as an option. As Mary Page said, all tests are canceled at this point until August, and we hope that in August that is going to go. They had a high priority group of students that they opened testing to for the August, September, and October tests. those were students who had no SAT score at all. So what they were doing is allowing those students to have the first option to get in on those test dates because they did not have an SAT. Tomorrow, they are opening up those test dates to everybody. So if my daughter had taken the SAT, let's say in February, and had a test score, she would not be able to register for one of those new SATs until tomorrow. So with that said, if you have a child, or if you are a child that does not have an SAT score and you plan on registering for the SAT, our recommendation is that you do that today, because when they open the floodgates tomorrow, they are expecting, and they even said it on the email, that they're expecting that sites are going to fill. And one of the things that you want is to always be able to test at a school that is either one, the school that you go to. That's always the best option, because when you go on a Saturday for a testing, you know the school, you know the environment, you probably are going to even know some of the people there. It's that familiarity. And so you automatically feel at ease. On the other hand, if you have to drive an hour from your home and take a test in a school district, in a school that you don't know, that just adds another level of stress. So our recommendation is, if you've not taken the SAT and you plan on taking one of those, I recommend that you do the registration tonight and take care of that. If you already have one and you want to retake it, tomorrow is your day. Now, with that said, if you've already taken the SAT and you used a voucher, you should already have a voucher in there, because that's considered next school year. If you have not taken the SAT and you do not know if you are eligible for a voucher, our recommendation is to contact your school counselor, your college support specialist at your school. And Tasha, I know Dr. Morgan, you're going to probably even talk a little bit more about that, about those people that are in the schools. But contact them immediately to see if you can get one if you do not already have one of those vouchers, okay? They are seeing those testing for August and September are already filling quickly. It's a greater increase, and they actually did not even have the September test. That's a new option this year, and yet they're seeing those fill up. They also announced that the plan is, if there is need, that they will also do a January test if there is still that need, but we are not sure that that's going to happen. It will depend on the need. And so with that, you know, prepare for it, get the registration done. And I know that some people are saying, I haven't taken either one. Do I register for the August and do I register for the September? That's going to kind of be one of those things that you're going to have to look at, because you may not have your test results back by the deadline for that September test. So really, you know, talk to your child, see how they felt about it. Sometimes you know, the test scores come in really pretty quickly, because it's you know, you've set up a College Board account and you're going to get them pretty quickly. But if this is the first time, research almost across the board has shown that once you take the test a second time, scores tend to go up. Okay.
Thank you. And Kristen, give advice, please, for the students who are rising seniors who already have an SAT score. It might not be their favorite. They think they can do better, but they want to apply early. We all know, if you don't know, Clemson University gives you your housing assignments based on your application date. Mm-hmm. So if you apply August 1st to Clemson and you didn't, you know, let's say your SAT score is one that you hope to improve on.
Right.
If you then later take an SAT and you get better, what do you do with Clemson to communicate that?
So a lot of universities are, and once again, this is a changing landscape as you started from the very beginning. So a couple of things also that has come out from the College Board, and of course they work with all the universities across the country. They have sent out 3 recommendations to colleges. One is to please accept college admission test scores as late as possible. And now, will every college do that? we don't know. That will be something to contact your specific colleges. I think that some colleges are going to really be accepting them a little bit later. Maybe get your application in, and then when you get your scores in, be able to go in and modify your application and always be in contact with the admissions people and have that good contact with them. They are also, the College Board is asking for colleges to equally consider students for admission who were not able to test. That goes back to that test optional. And that's going to be, I think, very difficult for colleges to do, but they did send that out. And that they asked for colleges to recognize that there is the possibility that some students will only have one test date, and for them to recognize that. And once again, we know that students do better when they take the test the second time. It's that idea of, I've taken the test, I know the time limits, I have experience. It's, you know, you're not going into it cold. So they have asked for those three things. And I think what, you know, once again, knowing what colleges your child is applying to, knowing those deadlines, and if you have to, you know, yes, you want to check the website, but with everything changing quickly, I would find out who my college admissions rep is for my college, know how to contact them, and ask real, you know, email them and ask questions, because it will be different by colleges.
That's right.
I'll add this too, back to what Mary Page mentioned earlier about your academic story. If you are in a, let's say you're in a very rural area, and the opportunities are just not there for you to get to a test, that needs to be a part of your academic story. You know, if that school test day is the only one that you are going to have, then now is the time to work on how to talk about the hardship of being a student in a rural area, or a student, maybe you don't have access to transportation. So I'm just throwing things out there to just sort of help you build your toolbox as it relates to that academic story.
And rest assured, you know, the admissions counselors tend to know their area really well. So like, even if you're the admissions counselor for, you know, Virginia Tech, if you are assigned North and South Carolina, you make it your business to know the school profiles and to know the area that you are assigned to. So they're receptive to hearing what you want to say about those things. I know we had some folks in the chat box asking about the ACT. Here is the most up-to-date information that I have on the ACT. We are hoping that the state will offer the free ACT in school on October the 6th. That is the date we have right now. Again, I would tell you that the ACT shows the same kind of pattern. Usually we have higher scores on a Saturday, but this is the free time, so we're definitely going to take advantage of it. Now, you can't take both. You have to have chosen, and you probably already did, choose whether you're going to take the SAT or the ACT. One thing I would say about the ACT, if you've taken the SAT on a Saturday and you were going to take the ACT on the school day, just know that the ACT, a lot of times that the first time a student takes the ACT, timing becomes an issue because it is a timed test. So you really want to practice and work on that timing before that date of October the 6th, if you're an ACT kid on that day. We know that ACT did still offer their June and July tests, but we know that schools in South Carolina did not administer them. So for fall, they are planning for online testing, but I, like you, listened to the breaking news that Kristen just shared with us from College Board, and I have to tell y'all that usually the way one goes, the other one goes. So if College Board is not going to do it, I would not be surprised if ACT is not going to do it. I will tell you, though, that the College Board had the unusual experience of trying to do online AP testing at home. And, you know, that did not go that well. And so, you know, there are still makeup tests being given And maybe that drove their decision not to delve into online testing. In fact, I'm quite sure it did. And the ACT did not have that experience because they don't do the AP test. So maybe they'll be brave and try it. I don't know. I could not find any absolute dates for ACT for this fall, but I did see that they have said they will add tests just like the College Board and do it monthly. And we assume, based on past years, we assume there will be a September the 12th test, and that your deadline to register for that will be by early August. But parents, students, please just keep your eye on the ACT website. Go on that website daily, daily, because as Kristen said with the College Board, those tests will fill up. When you are talking about rising seniors who've got to apply to college in 3 and 4 months from now, who have not had a test score yet, the earliest tests are going to fill up. Same with SAT. So try to get in there and get registered. So because ACT is the one we don't know a lot about, please take it upon yourselves to Google that daily. Okay.
So real quickly, somebody asked here, so do you know that the July 18th test sites in South Carolina are not going to be open? The information that we have received is there are no sites in the state of South Carolina for that July 18th test administration. That they're all, none of the schools in the state have opted to give it.
That's right. That's right. And that guidance came from a state level, so it wasn't like, you know, Spring Valley High School decided we're not going to test. It was a recommendation, the kind of recommendation that you're supposed to accept from the state level. So that's sort of what happened there. So there are other unknowns that have to be considered. And we are getting toward the end, but I hope we're not losing your attention because some of these are very important. We are looking at financial losses from colleges. I have named Furman here, but I'm actually not picking on Furman. I'm actually happy that Furman has done what they have done. They have announced some changes. They are discontinuing men's baseball, men's lacrosse. They had some furloughs announced for their faculty and things of that nature. I am actually more comfortable with a school that tells me that they had a problem and what they have done to address it than I am about, I have a lot of questions about some, especially our smaller schools, especially private schools that are not getting a lot of state dollars. I am concerned, and I am saying to you, if you are planning on applying to small private schools in our state, out of our state, whatever, you need to be a detective and find out about the financial solvency of the school that you are thinking about applying to and attending. It might be a good time to think about distance in our world and in a pandemic time. They are estimating, a study I read just last week out of the state of Georgia said that 45% of rising seniors are now planning to enroll in a college closer to home. 45%. Just looking at it as just a, you know, on a personal level, I have a child in college right now. I know many of you might as well, and you know how it was. It was like, move them out. And, you know, here's the day, and there is no flexibility on this day. And that was more difficult for people that had children in New York and in New Jersey and in Virginia than it was for people who just had, you know, the 2.5 hours to ride to a college right around here. I will also tell you that I read an interview yesterday with an education professor from Michigan State who feels that this is going to add a year or two to the time that a child is in college. And she didn't explain. And so I started sitting around thinking, why would that be? And I know that one thing I have heard from other parents of college students is that people are unhappy paying the kind of money you pay to a college for a virtual learning situation. And so it might be that where students were taking 15 and 18 hours a semester, maybe they're backing it up to 12 just to stay full time in case that, because a lot of colleges have already announced that it's definitely going virtual between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and some have announced that it's going virtual between Thanksgiving and the end of January. So people are maybe not as wild about paying full tuition prices for classes that will be half virtual. So anyway, just kind of keep in mind these things as you think about college moving forward. However, I do hear some conversation about not going to college. And I think I'm not going to go. I do want to reflect on the value of a college education. And just putting yourself in a good place to make sure that you are admitted to college. I had a personal experience with a child about to enter Forest Lake Elementary, and I heard the principal there say to this crowd, it happened to be the year of Hurricane Katrina. And, you know, she said something that has never left me. She said, you can lose everything. You can lose your house, you can lose your belongings, you can lose your money. But there are two things that can never be taken away from you. And one of those is your education. So that holds true in this environment. If you've lost your job, you have your education to fall back on to find a new job. I read a study yesterday that showed the 15 hardest hit professions during this pandemic. And of the 15, only one required a college degree, and that was airline pilot. So the 14 out of the 15 were the types of jobs that, and maybe some people have those jobs who do have a college degree, but they were not the types of jobs that require a college degree. So education has value. You need to pursue your education if you can. However, please look at the bottom paragraph, not at the cost of your family's financial health. A lot of families have encountered financial stress and difficulty during this time. And if that is the case, then perhaps you change your college path and you include Midlands Tech or your local community college instead of going straight to a four-year university. But please don't change your plans. Try to pursue a post-secondary education, whether it's a certificate program at Midlands Tech or a 2-year program or a transfer to a 4-year school. Try to pursue your education. It has great value to you and your life. All right, and we'll turn this over to Kristen.
So, you know, we have this time right now that a lot of us are at home sitting here, and there are a lot of things that that the students can be working on, and there are a lot of things that the parents can help them with, and that you have people that you can reach out to. But really, I want to emphasize to really use this time. Number one is brush up on your academic skills. And one of the things I think is really important as a student, no matter what grade you are in, no matter what, is to be self-reflective. You know the skills that may be like, hey, maybe I need to brush up on some of my trig. You kind of know as a student. So use this time to really brush up on your academics. A lot of students may not be getting part-time jobs. So use this time to do that, whether it's writing, whether it's mathematics, whether it's reading. Reading books that are complex text are going to help you to brush up on your academic skills. It's going to help you for your senior year. It's going to help you when you go to college, okay? The next thing goes right into that. Prepare for the SAT or the ACT, and or you may be taking both. So that means, sign up. There are a lot of things that are free out there that you can sign up for. If you have a College Board account, if you have a test, you can actually go to get Khan Academy test prep for free, just by setting up your College Board account and linking it to Khan Academy. If you've already taken the SAT, it will import scores right into it. And ACT has a program that is very similar also, but it's at a minimal cost. Look for anything that is out there that's going to help you prepare. There might be things that schools are going to be starting to offer that are going to be virtual this summer. So reach out to your schools and to your people there that are to look for possibilities. The next thing is visit colleges virtually. You might not be able to we always love for kids to put, feet on the ground is what we say. You want to get that feel for the college. This summer, you may not be able to do that. You may be able to, go to some on a weekend. They're not open. You're not going to get the same feel, but then do it virtually. Go through it and really look and think about, would I fit into this college? Another thing that you can do besides virtually is if you know other kids who have gone to these schools, talk to them, get a feel for what it's like. Okay. Then by the end of this summer, hopefully you've got it down to 5 colleges. 5 colleges, because as Mary Page has indicated, a lot of applications are going to open August 1st. So that's June, July. Applications are opening in 2 months, everybody. It is right around the corner. So having those down and being able to do that. So in these 2 months, the next thing, and we've talked a lot about this, start writing the ideas of essays for both for applications to college and for scholarships. And students are like, so what am I going to write about? So writing about a struggle that you have and how you overcame it. Maybe those are just common questions. It may be worded a little bit differently. Something like, tell us about an obstacle that you faced and what you learned from it, okay? Maybe something that has changed your thinking, your view on the world. I see that in today and what's going on, that's gonna be, tell me something that has changed the way you view the world and what has, what you have thought, okay? Tell us a problem that you've had and that you failed at it initially, and then how did you solve it? Those are all very common themes whenever you're doing any kind of essays that they ask for. The next one to do in these next 2 months is to get your references lined up. Not just like, oh, I'm going to ask Dr. Morgan for a reference. No, you're going to contact Dr. Morgan because you want Dr. Morgan to have your letter of reference. She's going to have time to think about it. You're going to get information to Dr. Morgan, and so that she writes the best letter of recommendation for you. The more time that you give to those people to write those references, the better the letter of reference is going to be. And really take time to really think about, if you have to have 2 or 3 references, sometimes the college will say it has to be a core teacher. Sometimes it has to be a guidance counselor. Sometimes they don't specify and it's somebody different. Think outside the box on who those letters of references come from. You want to always have academics there, but maybe if there's 3 and they give you another option, somebody that's outside of the school who could, if you are in the Boy Scouts and you're, what's the top level called? Not a Cub Scout, but
Eagle Scout.
Eagle Scout. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Then have the person who worked with you, have that person write a letter of reference. Because let me tell you, being an Eagle Scout is a standout thing that colleges are looking for. So look for things like that, but get those references lined up. Get that, as Dr. Morgan said, get that resume to them, talk to them, let them know. If I am a college student who is applying and I'm getting Dr. Morgan to write my letter of recommendation. One of the things that I might want her to include, and I'm just making this up, but if I was a homeless student during this time period, I would ask her to say, would you please address that and let the college know, yes, I was homeless, but I did X, Y, and Z, and these are the things that I overcame, because I want her to tell my story, okay? So then the next one is, this is for parents and this is for students. Organize your financial information. Because if your child is going to college, and we want you to, we just talked about the importance of an education, we know that you're going to have to do FAFSA, and it opens on October 1. So you want to get all that financial information in place so that you can hit the ground running. Take the time to really start pulling, if they require FAFSA and you get pulled for verification, which most people do in something, you want to be able to have those forms, the W-2s, any kind of legal documents that you need. If there has been a divorce, if somebody's been adopted, there are lots of options. And so just knowing your situation. And then the last thing is, and really Mary Page touched upon this earlier, but it's think outside the box. We are all in a pandemic. We are all home. We are all sad. We're all lonely in different degrees. So what'd you do about it? What did you take from this and do something? You don't want, listen, a college doesn't want the kid who sat at home and played video games for 2 months. They want the kid who thought outside the box, who recognized that, what? I have 5 elderly people who live on my street. And so I made a form, and they gave me what they needed from the grocery store. And I was the grocery runner for the people in my neighborhood. Simple things like that really don't even cost money, but thinking outside the box of what's going to make you stand out. Because during this pandemic, colleges are going to look for who stands out by how they thought worked outside the box, and then giving you those things that you do outside the box. Guess what? It gives you things to write in your essays that are going to be for your applications and for your scholarship money. So make it a great chance and work with that.
Yes, and we had a question in the chat box that said, what about if you were sheltering in place and you didn't really get out a lot during the COVID? Does that, still apply to you, that you need to have some way that you develop your character or your resume or whatever it is? And I would just say, if you were truly at home, and we all were for a certain amount of weeks, then perhaps, and you might need to talk to your child, maybe they will surprise you and have done something that you didn't even know they did. Maybe they got on YouTube and taught themselves the ukulele. You don't know. And so, even at home, sheltering in place, maybe they took that opportunity to learn something new. Maybe they just read a lot and can talk about some of the books that they read. But listen, if that time is over, and I do think you can still serve our community in like that way that Kristen just mentioned is perfect. I get dismayed, you probably do too, when I go to the grocery store and I see elderly people in there shopping for themselves. And I think, who are these people's children who are not shopping for their parents? Or, where are their neighbors? So think about just the ways you can still help people in this environment. Our state, our city has opened up a great deal. We know that. Whether that's good or bad, we're not here to commentate on that. But just there are still opportunities to say how things you did. If you are in a family that is still sheltering because of, you have family members who can seriously are in one of those health situations where they would be impacted if someone were to get sick in the family, then think now about how you can use your time at home. Teach yourself something, start a new skill. There are things you can do. And then but here's the thing, they're putting that there and you can use it to your benefit, but they're putting those places on applications now because if it seriously did impact you in a negative way, that's your time to say it. Mm-hmm. And there are, we have students who don't want to talk about the bad things in their life, and I get that. But this is one of those times in your life when if something is important to you, you have to just say it the way it is. And if that's the time you need to take that opportunity on the Common App or on the USC application or the Coalition app or whatever, just to say, this was a challenging time for my family. Here's why. And frankly, it was a success that I survived it. That may be your statement in that box. and that is okay. You can still, use this time at doing those things that Kristen just pointed out, and make yourself a good candidate either way.
Mary Page,
Okay.
another question that piggybacks on the COVID-19 pandemic adds the other layer of the racial protest. Would you encourage students to also discuss how the racial protest combined with COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic, impacted them?
Yes.
Yes.
Good point. I think that we will have students who have the capability to write about that. In fact, that's going to be fertile ground for those essay questions that allow you to talk about the challenges in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And Kristen asserted that there is always a question worded in some way or another that allows you to address challenges. Here it is. This year's Common Application essay question around that topic is: the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge or a setback or a failure, and how did it affect you? And what did you learn from the experience? So that is one of the questions.
So
Mm-hmm.
with that, am I muted?
You're good.
Is that, what everybody's looking for is, obviously it's not always the problem. You have to talk about the problem, and you want to be able to talk about it in a very appropriate way, and you want to communicate the seriousness of the problem. But the big takeaway is the so what. It is, what did you learn? How has it changed your life? How are you going to grow from this? What did you take away from it? It's not just, we had a pandemic and I've been locked up in the house and blah, blah, blah.
Everybody was.
Everybody was. Everybody has problems. It's this whole idea of the so what. And that's what I always like to tell students. So what? What'd you learn? What changed in your opinions, your thoughts, your actions? That's what colleges are looking for.
Yes. And here's another Common App question, just in case you are somebody who has not faced a challenge of any big variety, but you were locked at home just like everybody else. So what did you do? This one gives you an opportunity to discuss a topic, idea, or concept that you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So the Common App is going to have questions for all of you out there. One of those questions is going to be the perfect hook for you to sink your teeth into and to really develop a really good essay. There are 7 in all. So you will find a question that allows you to express yourself exactly, whether it's about the pandemics, the protests, what you did while you were at home. Any of those areas will have fertile ground for you in essay writing.
And parents, this is not the time to let your children submit something without you looking at it. You need to read it. You need to, if you're not a good proofer, have someone proof it. You don't want to hijack their story, but you also want to make sure that they're using grammar correctly. I mean, there's nothing worse than trying to read through a student's essay and it's full of grammatical errors and they just write without thinking. They've got their thoughts down, boom, it's done. This is not that kind of writing. They're not receiving a grade. They're receiving a ticket to an opportunity for the rest of their life. So the stakes are way too high to let them just send something and you haven't seen it. And if that's not your strength, find a friend, or, like Mary Page said earlier, they're English language arts teachers. It doesn't have to be the one they have coming up. It could be one that they had, a few years ago. That was one of their favorites. Teachers are more than happy to do those kinds of things as long as you give them the time to do it. So just be mindful of that.
You know, the
Absolutely.
colleges are asking for those essays for a really important reason, because in college, you are going to write a lot. Probably the first or second day of college, you're going to be given, you know, I remember, you know, the 5-page essay that was on the first day of college back in the dark ages when I went. But that's the reality, that you're going to write a lot in college. And so, yes, they want to see how you think. They want to see about your experiences, but they want to see how you write.
Measuring, yes.
So good writing is the highest indicator of success in college. If
I
you
want to
can
say
write-
this because of talking about what colleges are going to want to see. Now, we all know the news that hit last year about the celebrities that lied and fraudulently applied to colleges with experiences that their children did not have and test scores that their children did not make. But I want to say, if we've stressed you out today by acting like you needed to turn into, you know, Mother Teresa during the pandemic, and you didn't do anything, please don't lie. Do not lie. Find another fabulous essay. You can leave the box about, do you want to explain how COVID affected you personally and academically? That one can be left blank. I think I haven't seen it on the application, but I don't think that's a mandatory box. So if you didn't do anything, don't lie about it. I have seen a memo from the University of California system where, of course, a lot of that happened, that they are saying to high schools right now, we want the transcripts, we want the counselor statements, you know, we want these things right now. We are checking on every kid, the legitimacy of the kids that they have accepted. So I think that there is kind of an environment of that. The colleges are sensitive to fraud right now. So don't lie, be honest. You all have something great to offer. You just have to find a way to express it.
And can I say one last thing on that, and then I promise I'll stop. It doesn't have to always be earth-shattering. Sometimes it can be humorous. You know, maybe what you found out during the pandemic is, you know, that your little brother used to always drive you crazy. And then during the pandemic, and you spent a lot of time, you found out something about him. You found out how to drive him crazy. I mean, it can be humorous. It doesn't have to be everything heart-wrenching.
That's right, absolutely.
You know, but something different that happened to you during that time. And it doesn't have to be that you learned how to speak French.
Okay, so maybe Libby or Tasha can see the comments. I'm scared to mess with my screen, and so I don't have the questions that have been coming in the chat box, if any. If you are out there and you would like to ask a question, please do.
Yes, we have one. I think, Tasha, check behind me, but I think we may have covered all the questions. We do have a Miss Christy Benson who has raised her hand. So,
Okay.
Ms. Benson, if you want to unmute yourself, if you have a question to ask, go right ahead. And I can unmute you if you like. In fact, I'm going to do that, Christy. I'm going to there you go.
I'm sorry. I did that by mistake. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I can lower your hand.
Now you're up.
No problem.
I get curious about those buttons too, Christy, so I get it.
I think there's one question, and I'm going to defer this to Dr. Morgan. Should the letters of recommendation be on school or company letterhead? Because I have heard it both ways, and I'm going to defer that to Dr. Morgan.
I think whatever that organization that person is representing that you're a part of, if it's Girl Scouts, they should have a troop letterhead. If it's, you know, your school, then obviously your teacher most likely would put that on letterhead. So, you know, that just, you know, there's no other way to confirm who's writing the information, but a letterhead just offers a degree of legitimacy to your letters, you know. But if it's your youth pastor, you know, they may not, you know, people work with what they have. But the letterhead should be reflective of your participation. So you may know the Girl Scout troop leader, but if you're not in the troop and they're writing about something that you did, personally, it shouldn't be on letterhead.
Right.
I will tell you that in the Duke Institute that I went to about letters of recommendation, they do like to see the letterhead. And, also the more selective your college is, the more important that it is that your letters of recommendation are academic, from academic sources. For scholarships, for a lot of scholarship programs, that's when your recommendations coming from your Girl Scout leader or your football coach and people like that can come into play more. And if you were applying to one of our many fabulous colleges that are not very selective, we have a lot of great institutions in our state where you can go and become a truly great individual, a truly great college graduate, and they're not that selective. Those kinds of recommendations are good. But if you are trying to get into Furman, if you're trying to get into USC, if you're trying to get into Clemson, you need to have academic letters of recommendation. Our colleges, I'm just going to say this. I had it in a note and I didn't say it. I need to find it. But our SAT scores in our state have gone up so much from the point of when the lottery system was put into our state. It used to be that in the state of South Carolina, we had a brain drain and all of our really, really bright kids were leaving us and going out of state. And so the lottery system was put in place to combat that. And our average SAT scores at our state universities now are pretty darn high. And, at both Carolina and Clemson, College of Charleston is pretty selective, Furman, Wofford. So you need to think about your letters of recommendation. Okay, were there any more questions?
Yeah, Jill Cox asked the question, can a teacher write one letter of recommendation and then you make copies for every school that you apply to? I say that you do not do that because the letter should be personalized. So if I am writing a letter for a student, I am always going to say, I am recommending Otasha Morgan as a freshman at Furman University. I am always going to put something about the college, and so that it is personalized. I think that goes an added little component to that. So make sure of that. And then another thing I'm going to throw in at the same, when your students are writing like their essays, and if they put something specific, if I'm doing an essay to Wofford, and then I'm using the same one kind of go Furman, and I mention the school in there that says something like, this is why I would be a great student at Furman, you want to make sure that that is corrected when you send it to Wofford, so that it makes it nice to have a personal touch in there. Okay.
Absolutely, and that's part of the PD when I do work with teachers on writing a recommendation. Name the school, link things about the student to that school's goals. And I did finally find the average SAT scores. I had skipped over that part. Average SAT score at Clemson is 1310. Average SAT score at the University of South Carolina is 1275. Y'all, these are high. These are high test scores at our state universities. Again, I want to say, we have students, I wish some of these people I know who are out here, the counselors and the AVID teachers and the Gear Up professionals could speak. We have great schools in our state, USC Upstate, USC Aiken, Winthrop, Coastal Carolina, Francis Marion, Lander, Coker, all these places really develop kids. They are great places. And so we have a plethora of really good schools in our state. Not all of them are asking you to be that academically successful. So, just find your, like Kristen said, pick out your 5 schools and make sure you have a reach school. Make sure you have a kind of on your level school, and then you want a safety school for sure. All right.
I guess there's one last question. Should a child switch back and forth between ACT and SAT? So at this, we're in the pandemic. And so it really is different because you probably don't have time to possibly take both. You have indicated that your child has taken the ACT and that obviously they're being tutored on the ACT, and the tests are different. There are a lot more similarities than there used to be, but you are probably, it looks like maybe going to, if your child is going to be a senior, have one choice in the, one test. So I would stick to whichever one your child has been working on and go with that. My advice for other people, if there are any people who have a child who's a rising junior, I say in the junior year, take the SAT and the ACT as a Saturday if you can do that. If you have a voucher and you're entitled to that, you can get those for free on a Saturday. Otherwise, if you have to pay, I recommend doing that and kind of getting a feel for which test is better for you. And I recommend doing that in the fall of your junior year. Then you can pick the test in the spring that you're going to take for free, that the state's going to hopefully pay for it again, and hopefully get that score that you really need and put it to bed so that the summer before your senior year, you don't have to worry about that. But this year with the pandemic, stick with the one that you're working on.
And let me say this, if you are going to be limited in your testing, the #1 best way to get a higher test score is to take it again. And in Richland too, and I know we have visitors from other districts, so I cannot speak to that, but in Richland too, we have been preparing you on the SAT. We have given you the PSAT. You have gotten the PSAT, some of you in 8th grade. You've gotten it in 9th grade. You've gotten it in 10th grade. So you have more practice on the College Board SAT than you have on ACT. So that's probably the one you're going to be better off taking. The good news is it's the one with the free prep system, which is Khan Academy. And that's probably your better bet. Now, if you have already signed up for your state test and you know you got the ACT, I'm just going to reiterate, practice the timing. Parents, help your kids download a practice ACT. Do it at your dining room table in real time, because the timing will throw kids off if they have never been under that timed environment before, especially the math and the writing.
I want to say something that I got in the mail the other day about ACT, where they did used to charge a fee for that. They just sent out this flyer, and they are now offering their test prep for free.
Oh, that's a change. That's good.
Yes, so that just came out in the mail. I just got that this week, and so it's the ACT Academy free online test prep tool. So they are now offering that for free.
All right. Ms. Hassan had another question, and it's lost from my screen now. Somebody can read it to me.
How does class ranking get considered in combination with ACT or SAT scores if the school is not test optional? So Clemson or Carolina, or most of them at this point.
Yeah, I think that they do try to do a good job with the holistic view. As I mentioned earlier, the admissions counselors know your schools. They know their service areas really well. And you may not even be aware of it, but like when you apply to the University of South Carolina, your application will be routed to the admissions officer that knows the Midlands area, the best. And they know about your schools. They know what your typical top 10 of your student body, what kind of grades they have, what kind of scores they have. They sort of know how competitive. And let me tell you this, let me be 100% clear about this. They never will judge you by what they had at another school. Does that make sense? Like, I know that students sometimes in middle school in our magnet environment, they'll say, well, I'm really interested in this, but I feel like the program over here at this school has got all these really, you know, kinds of kids in it. But you will, if you go to school A, you will never be judged by what they have at school B. So the class rank and everything that you're going to be judged by is going to be based on your school, the competitive environment at your school, and it's a holistic view. They will look at, like, if, you know, if your GPA is good and your class rank is good, all of that is taken into a holistic view. Does that answer that question? It's hard when I can't see your faces to know whether you.
Ms. Hassan is one of the few that has her camera on, so.
Oh, okay. Ms. Hassan, does that answer your question? I think you're muted, Ms. Hassan. I can't hear you, but you can give me a thumbs up if you're okay. Okay, all right.
One thing
Colleges really are trying to be holistic.
Yeah, I think, you know, the whole point of SAT and ACT scores is to evaluate and put everybody, I'm going to say, on a level playing field. It's to really compare apples to apples. And, you know, we have a lot, there's a kid from every state across the country who is going to be at USC, who's going to be at Clemson, who's going to be at these. And so that it is a way for them to really evaluate or to line kids up. So the scores do matter a lot. And, you know, that's why they ask for them. So.
And also, don't get so happy about test optional, because if you are in South Carolina, our lottery scholarships, as of right now, have not said they are test optional. So that's one of the ways your child could qualify for life, Palmetto Fellows. I mean, lots of different things use those test scores besides college admissions.
That's right.
And you will have a longer time period to take the test in order to qualify for that. I mean, sometimes there are kids who are taking, you know, the test in April of their senior year if they just need an extra point or something on the test, for instance, to get their fellows. So there's a little more time for that. So I don't see the lottery making a decision anytime soon in that.
Okay, any more questions? Thank y'all so much for your attendance. We really appreciate it and hope we have helped and given you some insight into the admissions environment that your rising seniors are facing. Thank you. I see one nice comment. Thank you so much. It has been interesting doing this from a dining room by yourself.
This last screen that you have up, Mary Page, I just want to highlight, if your student is in Richland School District 2, these are the specialists, our college admission specialists, college information specialists at each one of our high schools. Please take down their names. They are ready, available, and willing to help you navigate through this process. If you are not in Richland School District 2, I don't know, if your district has that specific person, but for us, that's a separate person from our school counselor. Your school counselor should be your main point of contact. And I'm going to say, whether you are in South Carolina or you're in Texas or Colorado, your school counselor can also help navigate your child through this process. But you have to make yourself known. You do have to make yourself known. Caseloads are really, really high, and there are lots of other things that, school counselors are tasked with doing. So make yourself known and make your needs known.
But I want to help, and we all want to help, and these people on the screen want to help. So if there's any way that we can serve you, that's exactly what we'd like to do. That is our job. You are our job, and your children are our job. And we take great delight in helping. So please let us know. And with that, we will log off. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, I'm going to end the meeting for everybody now, and the recording, once it gets posted to YouTube, I will send it to the emails that are all registered, and I'll send it to y'all as well. Okay?
Thank you, Libby.
All right, thank y'all. Have a good day.
Good job,
too.
team.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
y'all did a great job. Y'all really did. That was
Thank you.
impressive. Good
Appreciate it.
job. Bye.